Hi, it's Dr. Lori. We're going to make you pick the most valuable. Are you ready for the game? I want you to see if you can pick the most valuable from all different diverse objects. Art, antiques, collectibles, toys, all kinds of stuff. And I'm going to help you to identify those objects, know what they're really worth, so you can pick them up for a bargain at that thrift store, flea market, yard sale, or you can sell them right out of your basement, your attic, or your garage. So whichever you want to do, you need to know what they are, what they're really worth. See if you can pick the most valuable. Let's get started. All right, this first object is a Kodak camera. Now you go, a Kodak camera, Dr. Lori, everybody has a Kodak camera, and that's why you need to know the differences, and that's why you need to know which is what they're really worth. So, which is more valuable? Me, I'm a shutter bug. I like to take a million pictures. I love to have the phone with me all the time to take pictures of anything. An idea for the house, if I'm traveling somewhere, art and antiques, anything. So I really like to take pictures, a lot of pictures, so I have to sort of put them into those folders and digitize them. I spend a lot of time doing that. Anyway, this particular one, you wouldn't be able to digitize these photographs. This is a 1933 Kodak camera. It's a Rainbow Hawkeye camera. That's what it's called. And it's expandable. So you see that little kind of accordion thing that looks really cool. That particular piece is what you're going to see in the 1930s, or right toward the end, of course, of the Art Deco period. This one is a red color. It's nice, good piece. It's in good condition, and value on it, you'll be surprised to learn, about $80. Now you're going to go, wait a minute, Dr. Lori, I've seen those on eBay and they're at $300 or $200. Well, they might be priced at that, but they're not selling for that. They're worth $80, and there are a lot of them still in the market. So you need to know the real value, the true value, the actual value based on sales records where people are actually paying these numbers, okay? It's really important. I always give you retail values, right? And I always give you those that are based on actual sales records. Not someone who's saying, oh, I can sell it for this, or I can price it at that. You can price it at anything you want. You've heard me say it. It's a price, a hope, a wish, a dream. That's what a price is. An appraised value is based on a sales record where somebody swiped a credit card, used Apple Pay, wrote a check, paid cash, where they paid the bill. Okay. Next one. This piece is an ashtray. Now, ashtrays. I never smoked. I know why I never smoked. It had to do with a redheaded lady named Elsie, my mother. Here's why I didn't smoke. My father smoked and my mother hated it. So we were not going to be smokers. Her kids were not going to smoke. Not a bad thing if you smoked, but again, she was like, she couldn't stand all the ashtrays around. She was always emptying ashtrays. But so I never smoked. So smoking collectibles really weren't some of the things that a lot of people who were either trying to quit smoking or who never smoked, in fact, would be looking for. So smoking collectibles really kind of fell out of favor. It's called tobacco-ana. Pipes and pipe holders, pipe jars or jugs, cigarette cases and such. A lot of those pieces really fell out of favor in about the late 1970s, early 1980s. And you see sort of a rise every once in a while in the market, then they'd fall again. So ashtrays kind of fell into that particular element. Here's what I want you to know about this particular ashtray. This ashtray is indicative of the 1970s, and I want you to identify and be able to, with your eyes, recognize a color of a time period. So do you know what I mean by that? So a color of a time period, that certain colors just aren't really used in certain time periods. They fall out of favor. You know, the way gray was in about 5 years ago, and everything you saw in every interior design and every HGTV show and every single magazine was gray, because that's what was in. It's those Pantone colors that are chosen every year. It's that kind of thing. Well, in the 1970s, this dark teal color was very, very popular. So immediately someone like me looks at that and goes, oh, that's the 70s, okay? It's the same thing about bright colors in the 50s and 60s, muted colors in the 70s, and kind of neon and candy apple colors of the 1980s, if you will. This 1970s ashtray is, of course, ceramic, and it's molded, and it's mass-produced. So when you hear mass-produced, you should think lots of objects, many of them out there, low value. It's worth about 25 bucks. This is a Humpty Dumpty cookie jar, right? Now, a lot of us had cookie jars on the countertops in the kitchen when we were growing up. And my mom had a cookie jar too. You can tell from my hips I had cookie jars. But my mom had a cookie jar too. It was a cookie jar in the form of Humpty Dumpty. Nursery rhymes were really popular in that time period, in the middle part of the 1920s of the 1900s to the late 1900s. And cookie jars were important, and you'll notice they were pretty big, large cookie jars. I always say, we were getting bigger as Americans after World War II, and so were our cookie jars. If you look at a cookie jar from 1900, it's a lot smaller than a cookie jar from 1950. Humpty Dumpty and other nursery rhymes were popular subjects for cookie jars, just like this one. This one dates to the 1930s, and this particular cookie jar is worth $250. So now you're going, hey, Dr. Lori, why is the cookie jar worth so much money? Well, this particular cookie jar is made in the United States. Yes, it's mass produced, but in fact, cookie jars became quite collectible. A lot of people wanted kitchen or kitchen collectibles for their collecting or collectors category. So cookie jars became collectible in the late 80s and have continued so. Early ones from the early 1900s made of ceramic by American companies, pottery companies like those in Zanesville, Ohio, or those in Trenton, New Jersey, were in fact pretty desirable and sought after. Just like this one. Humpty Dumpty's a lot of fun too. Okay, now I want to talk a little bit about jewelry. I love jewelry, and I love jewelry for a couple reasons. First reason I love jewelry, I like the bling. I think adornment is wonderful. I like it. Okay, fine. I'm a girl. It makes sense. The other reason is jewelry holds value. Luxury items like this of good quality hold value, and I like value. I like money. So I want you to think about that, how these pieces can actually make you money. This piece is a set of amber, so amber, called susanite. And susanite is something that you may not hear that name, but you've heard amber a million times. Baltic amber, amber from the Baltic Sea, amber from places like Copenhagen, amber from places like Russia. So amber is really collectible. Amber is often faked. A lot of plastic is made to look like amber, so it's not real amber. You really need to know real amber. And now, here's the thing I want you to remember. These tests, these tests? Take acetone and put it on your amber to see whether or not it's real amber. Take a hot needle and put it on your amber to see if it's real amber. Take, of course, a needle or a scratch test to your amber. Don't do any of those things, because remember, condition is to antiques what location is to real estate. It's got to stay in good shape. If it's in bad condition because you did a stupid test on it, you don't want that. You don't want that. You want to make sure that you are testing amber in only this particular way. If you don't know if that it's amber and you didn't get it from someone reputable or someone who in fact can determine that this particular piece is real amber, there's a very easy test that won't hurt the amber that you can do. So take the amber, put it into a cloth, a white cotton cloth, like my gloves if you want. Put it into the cloth, rub it, and then put it up near your hair. If an electrostatic electricity comes toward the amber, you know you have real amber, because that particular material will attract that electrostatic, if you will. All right? That's what I want you to think about. That's the only test that you should use on amber. All these other tests are going to damage your objects. So anybody who's telling you to do this is really going to help you to damage your object. And once you damage it, you devalue it. These particular set would be warm to the touch, right? If you have real amber, it's warm to the touch. And you're going to see imperfections, cracks. You're going to see a couple of little scratches. You're going to see imperfections because it is naturally developed. So that's pretty typical with respect to that as well. So for this set, the necklace, which is about 20 inches long, and the bracelet, of course, which is probably a 7.5, 8-inch bracelet, value on the set, $100. Real amber. And then there's some fun. Here's an E.T. Halloween mask. So in the 1980s, E.T., of course, was Steven Spielberg's very, very popular movie. And this is a Halloween mask. Now, Halloween masks in the 50s, 60s, 70s are made of different materials, plastic, vinyl, and such. They're very, very hot. I remember Halloween masks. We were usually one of those folks who were doing sort of the homemade. My parents weren't wealthy enough to buy a sort of Halloween mask kind of costumes. So we would have the homemade ones, like you wore, you know, a sweatshirt and sweatpants that were gray, and then you made yourself a tail and some ears, and all of a sudden you were a mouse, you know, that kind of thing. So it was kind of creative, but most of it was cheap. So basically, but this is one of those Halloween masks of a particular time period relating to a movie, right? So I always tell you, any time that you have a collectible that falls into more than one category, it's worth more money. So if you look at this ET, it falls into the categories of movie collectibles. It also falls in the category of Halloween objects. It also falls into the category of toys, because the costumes actually fall into toy categories too from the 1980s. The 80s are big right now. You're seeing that revival of the 70s and the 80s right now. So you want to think about these things and whether or not they are hitting their spike, right? The highest value that they're going to see over time. The ET Halloween mask is worth, are you ready for it? 75 bucks. All right. Then we have this piece, and these are those collectibles that, you know, your Aunt Chris or your Grandma Susie or whoever had in a curio cabinet or on a shelf for years and years and years. They never moved. And these pieces are the types of pieces that were from the early 1900s, maybe from their mothers or grandmothers. This piece is a ruby glass cut to clear boot, and it's used for toothpicks. So it's a little toothpick boot that you can put toothpicks in, and you can actually have them on the table or maybe on the kitchen shelf. They were pretty popular in the early part of the 1900s. A lot of people would get them at the fair if they went to a World's Fair, for example, in Chicago in 1893, or in St. Louis in 1904, or if they went down the shore to Wildwood, New Jersey, and they got one on the boardwalk. Not expensive in their day, and not that expensive today either. Interestingly enough, this particular piece from the early 1900s is glass, and of course red glass is made by an additive of gold in red glass, and this particular piece is worth $40 on the retail market today. Lots of them out there, lots of them produced in the early 1900s. They're kind of souvenir pieces that just don't go away, so you'll see them probably in a curio cabinet near you. And then there's Bob the Builder. This is a Bob the Builder backpack. We call them knapsacks, backpacks, you know. It's a thing you put on your back, you put your books in it, and you never notice how these kids have all these books. They have like 1,000 books. They're 5 years old. They got 12,000 books in school. It's unbelievable what they carry on their back. Anyway, so Bob the Builder backpack. This particular character is really important, and he becomes important because he's indicative of a particular time in history. Dates from about 2000 to 2005. Bob the Builder had the popular Bob the Builder cartoon show, right? And he'd have his helpers there, and he was really important because he highlighted the trades. He highlighted being a construction engineer, being a worker, being a plumber, you know, knowing how to actually do these things that everybody needs, these jobs that are extremely important. So what's interesting about Bob the Builder is he fits into that time period in America in the early 2000s with the housing boom, when people are building, when people are, of course, hiring subcontractors, when people are basically learning about this idea of highlighting folks who understand trades. So this is what's important to me in terms of the Bob the Builder piece, and this is how I want you to think about this. Bob the Builder, if you knew in 2000, hey, I'm going to hang on to this Bob the Builder piece because he's going to end up being like Kermit the Frog is to the 1970s, right? So you should hang on to him. How would you know that? Well, Kermit the Frog was to ecology and the environment what Bob the Builder is to, of course, the construction industry and to the time period in American history in the early 2000s of building houses, right? And of course, and renovating. So what's important about Bob the Builder and this particular backpack is that it relates to multiple categories, right? And also, he's different than other cartoon characters of the time. I don't know, use SpongeBob as an example. SpongeBob is great. We all like sea creatures, sure, that's fine. But SpongeBob is much more of a revival, in fact, of sort of the Disney idea of the Little Mermaid than, in fact, Bob the Builder is. Bob the Builder relates to something that's happening now. How do you spot that newly introduced character, toy, cartoon, figure, and know that that's going to be the collectible of the future. When I saw Bob the Builder, I'll tell you, I knew immediately that's going to be the thing you got to hold on to. And you really do want to do that. You want to hold on to those particular elements. So if you see a Bob the Builder knapsack today, right, in a thrift store, pick it up. Oh, really, Dr. Lori? Yeah. And the reason for it is the kid who had that in 2000, right, is now 20 years old. And guess what? They're going to just keep getting older, so that piece is going to just keep increasing in value. By the time that that child who had it in 2000 turns 40, they're going to want their Bob the Builder backpack. And this is important for you to understand how, as we age, we look toward collectibles. It's really important for selling. And when you start to learn how to identify these objects, in the early days, when they're first being introduced and they're inexpensive, it'll save you money and help you to flip it for cash. Bob the Builder knapsack, this particular example, is worth $55. Were you able to pick the most valuable from all these different pieces, from all these different time periods? Some toys, some cameras, some kitchen collectibles, and even jewelry. I hope you were able to choose the most valuable and, of course, learn a little bit with some tips about what you should buy at that thrift store, flea market, yard sale, and how you can sell it for a lot of money, flipping it online and elsewhere. I'm Dr. Lori. We'll see you next time.